One of the oldest sites excavated, actually the oldest fortified city in the world, is at Old Testament Jericho. And so we can go to Jericho. This is Tel El-Sultan. This is it. So when Joshua fit the Battle of Jericho, right here. When Katie Kenyon worked at Jericho, she excavated from the surface all the way down to bedrock. This is her trench. And it's in this area right here where they uncovered these old fortifications, some of the oldest walls ever found. They date them to about 12,000 BC. Is that right? No. 12,000 years old, about 10,000 BC. So this is the beginning of the Neolithic period. If you're ever on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and you get the question, what is the oldest city in the world? You need a clarifying question. Is that the oldest continually inhabited city or the oldest city we've uncovered? The oldest city we've uncovered is Jericho. The oldest continually inhabited city is Damascus. Yeah.
I thought the Minoan and Mycenaean cultures were before that. Is that not right?
Oh no, Minoan is about 1800 BC. You see, so that's 1800. This is 8,000. So it's an order of magnitude larger. It's the oldest civilization in the West, but this is not a civilization. This is a city. Cities are localized urban areas. Civilizations are connections of cities that have a common culture. Cityization of cities. So here's some tourists standing on the side of the trench at Jericho looking in and saying, why did I pay so much money to come look at a hole in the ground? But Jericho's an important site. There's a well there that's been flowing water for thousands of years, and women still go there today and take their water bottles to gather water for what they would need through the day. This isn't for tourists. These are people that live that kind of lifestyle. Lifestyle hasn't changed very much, even though I think this woman has a cell phone. She's texting. But other than that, it's pretty much the same. And I think the output is something like 20 gallons a second. So it produces a lot of water very quickly. It's used to irrigate that whole section of the desert. And it was there the time of the Neolithic people, and this is the first fortified city. This is a tower. I don't know if you can see it. This is a person going into the bottom of the tower. See his hat, the band around it? And so he's going into this hollow tower. There's a staircase that leads up to the top. And so the very first fortified structure we find is really quite complex, right? A hollow tower, that's pretty complex, with a staircase inside. You see what I'm saying about first? They just seem to be advanced, and that would suggest a biblical scenario of some kind of early advanced structure that disintegrates through time as opposed to a strictly evolutionary scenario. The tower at Jericho. Above the earlier walls, there are other walls. This is the earliest wall, but above that's another, and another, and another, and another. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 walls in this one image, and they're all Neolithic. So not only was there a city there at Jericho in Neolithic times, but they had enemies. Probably a lot of enemies that destroyed, or maybe an earthquakes that destroyed it. It is on a fault zone, but there are lots of walls. This is above that, which shows even more walls. See those layers? Those are all walls that have fallen down. When Kathleen Kenyon was excavating in the Neolithic strata, she found skulls with faces plastered onto the skulls. And of course, that leads to the question of why. Why are there plastering faces back onto the skulls? Here's a photograph taken during the excavations. There's a cache of them. And it's very indicative of that layer. It's called PPNB, Pre-Pottery Neolithic B, period, when they did this. And the most common interpretation is that skull belongs to great-granddad, and they put his face back on it because they're worshiping him as a god of sorts. It's what they call ancestor worship, which is common in primitive cultures to revere your grandparents, and whenever they die, you see them as taking on some kind of intermediary between you and the spirit world. And so they think that's probably the most common interpretation for these different skulls. Here's different examples of them. Plastered faces onto skulls. This one's different, isn't it? Because this is from New Guinea today. You go visit the headhunter in New Guinea, and he says, "Let me show you what I got a few weeks ago." And he brings it out. This is the head of one of his enemies that he's plastered the face back on. So that brings up another possibility, right? That those skulls that were found at Jericho were not family members, but they were enemies. They're trophies. So they put them on the mantle. And you could say, wow, so it was you that got so-and-so. I was wondering who got him.
Using teeth for hair?
What's that?
Using teeth for hair?
I don't think, are those teeth?
Shell.
Yeah, they look kind of like some kind of shell, I would think. You can see on these, they're using fragments of shell. I think there's cowrie shells in some of them. Yeah, I can't see it here. It looks like fragments of shell they've used for the eyes. So that would be my guess. Yeah, that looks like some kind of a freshwater clam shell of some kind.
Pretty detailed.
Yeah, because they want you to be able to see who it is. Because, you know, it's got to, if you can recognize some great hero, that's more power to you, I guess. This was also found at Jericho. It's a vase with a face on it. The face, or the vase, yeah, face. So it's possible they just like putting faces on everything. And so there's a skull, put a face on that. Here's a vase, we'll put a face on that. Most likely, though, it's some form of ancestor worship. Yes. When Kenyon was excavating at Neolithic Jericho, she also found a tomb. And this is the bier in which the person was carried to the grave, and these are the grave goods all around. This is a photograph taken when it was discovered, and you can see that these are organic remains. They're wood. So wood has survived in this cave for close to 12,000 years. And the reason is because it's so dry. It's in the Dead Sea area, and so the wood has remained intact. When they opened up this grave, though, it began to disintegrate as the air flowed in and began to interact in the humidity. So they had to come in and do some pretty heroic conservation work to preserve it. I've seen this. They have it now on display at the Rockefeller Museum in Jerusalem. And what stands out about the tomb as you look at it? Anything look odd? Here's the skeleton. You see the guy?
Look very long.
Yeah, well, I think that's from the perspective of the camera. But yeah, this is the person right here, and this is his bed. And these are his grave goods. What looks odd? Yeah, he's not on the bed. As a matter of fact, the top part of his body looks like someone sort of shuffled it, right? So that's kind of weird. What do you think caused that? Earthquakes, exactly right. This is in the Dead Sea area. And we're talking about 10,000 years. So how many earthquakes are you going to have in 10,000 years? And so nature itself has been shaking and moving stuff around inside the tomb. If we could go back to when they buried this guy, he's probably nice and neat, laying there on the wooden platform. All of those vases are probably all setting up in nice order. It's just the earthquakes have rattled it. Yeah, this is from the Rockefeller Museum. They didn't do a very good job putting it back, but based upon the original photograph. Or maybe there's been some more earthquakes since then. We'll just go with that.